All right, everyone, welcome once again to April and Acts. My name's DJ, and good to be with you here today. All right, well, actually, I guess what I didn't do today, I didn't do the thing. Let me share the screen like a person should when he's doing something like this. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're going over leadership lessons in the Book of Acts, and today is Acts 22, but 21 literally stops mid-sentence, which is unheard of. But that's exactly what happens. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this from verse 40 in 21. And if you weren't here yesterday, uh, to recall what's going on here. So basically, this is Paul has just been arrested, I guess you could say, um, and is well, yeah, just he's seized in the temple, and then people are going nuts, and so then then the commander basically takes him away, and whether that's being arrested or not, um, yeah. In any case, verse 40 here. When the commander had given him permission, Paul, standing on the steps, gestured with his hands to the people, and there was a great hush. And he spoke to them in the Hebrew dialect, which is Jewish Aramaic, saying, "Brethren and fathers, kinsmen, hear my defense, which I now offer you." When they heard that he was addressing them in the Hebrew dialect, they became even more quiet. And he continued, "I am a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, brought up in this city, educated at the feet of Gamaliel, who, as we'll recall here, was leading scholar of the Torah at that time, and taught many students. Yeah. According to the strictness of the law of our fathers, being ardent and passionate for God, just as all of you are today. I persecuted and pursued the followers of this way to the death, binding them with chains and putting the followers of Jesus, both men and women, into prisons. So the way is Jesus. That's a yeah, not an uncommon thing to have translated here. Verse 5. So both women into prisons, as the high priest and all the counselors or elders, the Sanhedrin, the Jewish high court, can testify. Because from them I received letters to the brothers, and I was on my way to Damascus in order to bring those believers who were there in Jerusalem, who were there to Jerusalem in chains to be punished. But as I was on my way approaching Damascus, about noontime, a great blaze of light suddenly flashed from heaven and shone around me. And I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to me, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" And I replied, "Who are you, Lord?" And he said to me, "I am Jesus the Nazarene, whom you are persecuting." Now, those who were with me saw the light, but did not understand the voice of the one speaking to me. Okay, as a footnote. This might be the second longest. Let's go for it. At first look, what Paul says here seems to contradict Luke the writer's own description of what happened in chapter 9, verse 7. However, Luke says there that Paul's companions saw no one, not that they did not see the light. And this may be an indication that Paul did not just see the light, but saw Jesus in the light. As for what was heard, there's a subtle distinction in the Greek between the two accounts. The Greek word for hear takes an object in one form for a source of a sound and another form for the substance or content of a sound. In Luke 9:7, Luke uses the first form, indicating that Paul's companions heard the voice as a sound. Here in 22:9, the second form is used, indicating that the others did not hear the substance of the sound. That is, they could not make out what the voice was saying. And I would just add to that this kind of matches with what we've seen Holy Spirit doing in others as well, where there is like a speaking in tongues, a spiritual language that is just not understood by others, but is understood by those who need to hear it. So this would not be out of the realm here to suspect that that's exactly what was going on here. So just to add that color. Verse 10. And I asked, "What shall I do, Lord?" And the Lord answered me, "Get up and go to Damascus. There you'll be told all that is appointed and destined for you to do." But since I could not see because of the glorious intensity and dazzling brightness of that light, I was led by the hand to those who were with me and came into Damascus. And one Ananias, a devout man according to the standard of law and well spoken of by all the Jews who lived there, or the law of the Torah, yeah, came to see me. And standing near, he said to me, "Brother Saul, receive your sight." And at that very moment, I recovered my sight and looked up at him. And he said, "The God of our fathers has appointed you to know his will and to progressively understand his plan with clarity and power, and to see the righteous one, Jesus Christ, the Messiah, and to hear a message from his own mouth. For you'll be a witness to all men, testifying what you have seen and heard. Now, why do you delay? Get up and be baptized, and wash away your sins by calling on his name for salvation. I like that. This is kind of this would be an every Monday thing for me, by the way. It's a common phrase that I hear on our Maxwell leadership calls every Monday with Mr. Chris Robinson, and it is his whole thing is like learn a little, do a little, which is a great reminder. But it's that whole like, okay, go. That's what it is a leadership trait right there of just not being stuck analyzing the situation, but being willing to go and either figure it out on the way or to just share what you've already learned. Not to try and figure everything out and then give it, which is very much the my engineering kind of background always wants to do things like that. It's like, well, let's figure everything out and then we'll come down from the hill with all the instructions. But that's not what this is about. It's like, okay, now it's you may not get all this, but get up and be baptized, wash away your sins. Go. This is a right now thing. And also the calling here. Don't miss the calling. It's another important thing that not everybody is called to speak. Not everybody is called to lead. Not everyone is called to serve bodily in these ways. And so it is important to recognize that calling is unique and not to sit there and try and figure it out, but to go. And he continues, verse 17. Then it happened when I had returned to Jerusalem and was praying in the temple enclosure that I fell into a trance, vision. I saw him saying to me, "Hurry and get out of Jerusalem. Hurry and get out of Jerusalem quickly, because they will not accept your testimony about me." And I said, "Lord, they themselves know, without any doubt, that in one synagogue after another I used to imprison and beat those who believed in you and your message of salvation. And when the blood of your witness Stephen was being shed, I was also standing nearby, approving and consenting to his death, and guarding the coats of those who were killing him." Guarding the coats. An interesting phrase. And the Lord said to me, "Go, I will send you far away to the Gentiles." It might be the only time I've highlighted a single word. They listened to Paul until he made this last statement. But now they raised their voices and shouted, Away with such a man from the earth. He is not fit to live. Wow. That's just, yeah. And they were shouting and throwing off their coats, getting ready to stone Paul. So that's the whole symbolic. He was guarding the coats that were thrown off as other people were stoning Stephen. That's what he's getting at there. Tossing dust into the air, expressing their anger. And the commander ordered him to be brought into the barracks, stating that he was to be interrogated with a whip in order to learn why the people were shouting against him that way. Standard practice of the slaves and others of no social standing under Roman rule. The thinking was that such people did not have the integrity to tell the truth and had to be tortured to drag the truth out of them. That's kind of key. But when they had stretched him out with leather straps in preparation for the whip, um, or for the whip, yeah, stretch him out for the whip. Wow. Paul said to the centurion who was standing by, "Is it legal for you to whip a man who is a Roman citizen and uncondemned without a trial?" So once again, Paul is doing that thing where he's let me give an example here, uh, if I can. Oh, maybe I can't. Oh, hey, I need to reorganize my desk. I was going to show you an example of of a a card that you can flash and people know your status. Oh, that's unfortunate. Anyway, I have a with Marriott hotels. I have a lifetime platinum elite status, right? And so they sent me this metal card. It I don't know how much it weighs, but it's like solid metal. It's got to be, you know, easily a couple of ounces. It is substantial, this thing. And so, all I would ever have to do is set this down on a counter at a Marriott hotel, and there'd be no question. I mean, it's there electronically anyway, but it's one of those symbolic things. And so this is Paul once again, letting it get so far, and then said, "Hang on a second. Membership has its privileges." That sort of thing. So 26. When the centurion heard this, he went to the commander and said to him, "What are you about to do? This man is a Roman." Death was the punishment for someone falsely claiming to be a Roman. That's an interesting note. So the commander came and asked Paul, "Tell me, are you a Roman?" And he said, "Yes." The commander replied, "I purchased the citizenship of mine for a large sum. I purchased the citizenship of mine for a large sum of money. So how do you require yours?" Wow. Messalina, the third wife of Emperor Claudius, was said to have illegally sold Roman citizenships at high prices. However, there were also legitimate ways to obtain citizenship. Yeah. Paul says, "But I was actually born a citizen." So those who are about to interrogate him by torture immediately let him go. And the commander was also afraid when he realized that Paul was a Roman and he had put him in chains. Again, this is somebody the commander had uh, bought his way into being a Roman, and if he put a Roman in chains and was about to whip him, that's a you know he's standing to lose his status because of it. That sort of thing. That makes some sense. But on the next day, wanting to know the real reason why Paul was being accused by the Jews, he released him and ordered the chief priests and the whole council, Sanhedrin Jewish court, to assemble and brought Paul down and presented him before them. I'm actually going to highlight that. And I think the reason I'm highlighting this is not just because of you know, pulling out the Roman card and saying, "Oh well, you can't do that to me. Look who I am." That's not exactly Paul's tone here, is it? It's more of like it's asking a question. Uh, hey, just wondering, is it legal for you to do this? Is this okay for you? He knows the answer, but he's instead of doing that whole like, hey, don't do this. I'm a Roman, whatever. He doesn't do it like that. He he asks the question, which is very powerful. I think sometimes we miss that. And honestly, in coaching, this is what I do almost the entire time. Very seldom. And I know there are people that claim to be coaches out there that are basically just instructors or trainers or just those that have an agenda and they just want you to follow what they do. A good coach in my mind is somebody who is walking the path with you and is asking the right questions. And so that is kind of the notion that Paul's getting after here. Is he's helping them draw the conclusion instead of just declaring it to them. And so he's bringing them along for the journey, which is a very interesting. it, yes, it is snarky, and yes, it is kind of like a what they would say a baller move, right? It kind of is, but at the same time, there is a tactic here that's very disarming. It's very non-confrontational to just simply ask a question, and so that's a really good leadership trait to realize here is that he is simply asking questions, which honestly, the funny thing about this is when you realize that this is something you can do even from like the stage, for example, you can actually um, have a notion of of doing this from the stage. It's possible to ask questions of your audience, for example, and actually get responses. Or as I think I mentioned earlier, you know, being there early and getting to know the people, working with them like Paul did as a tent maker, and getting to know them first before speaking to them. And so these are just character traits that are good for us to not only recognize but emulate. So yeah, and then of course taking action. I'm at a point right now where it's something I need to know as well. I'm actually, yeah, just trying to stay encouraged and not to just when I get into these kind of um, states of being with new things and business and things like that. It tends to be, especially if it's a new thing that hasn't really established yet, and it's not really going like I thought it was going to go. It's very easy for me to just say, well, that's not working. Let's try something else. Very easy for me to do that, and so the temptation is very strong, and so I'm actually going through that right now, as it turns out, as you know um, I'm less likely to reach out to folks and tell them what I'm doing because of that. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, maybe I should stop doing that and just do something else and just let it go, kind of thing. Um, but this morning I was very convicted of a piece of that. Like why do I do what I'm doing? And I am attacking this from multiple fronts, which is not great. I'll admit. It is one of those things where it's like, um, yeah, yeah. There's what am I trying to say here? Um, Let me back up a second. Let me just explain what I'm talking about in general here, and that is that I am in a place of going from serving as an IT engineer and consultant, that sort of thing, where I'm designing and implementing IT systems and that sort of thing for people in various places in the world, quite literally worldwide in some cases. Some of my last big clients were, you know, big companies in like London and whatnot. It's just it varies, right? But wanted to get away from that and kind of reach out to the next generation that's coming up and help them. And one of the gaps that I was really seeing as I was examining this is in leadership. And I've got to admit, there was some kind of my own being taken and whipped, though I was a member. It is very true. Not intentionally, but there's a lot of people that basically did some harm to me and my willingness to do this. And I don't think that was their intent, but it is something that happened, right? So there was a point in time where I was like, you know what, I just want to get away from this and just go elsewhere. This is about 2021, and what I immediately found was, one, it's not that easy. Not when you're trying to make a living at it, and you're trying to do so in a way that is not like deceptive or anything like that. So it was very difficult uh, right away, and realized that, oh, I'm not ready for that yet, and so having to kind of crawl back into the IT world again. I've actually done this process of crawling back about 4 or 5 times now. It's very exhausting emotionally, but it is something where there is a um, uh, I hesitate to call it a calling, but when you look at Paul and the way he did his ministry, he didn't do it like I had mentioned or kind of talked about before, like the whole shouting from the rooftops and things like that. That wasn't his style necessarily. I mean, he would work with people first and get to know them in the region, get to know about them, and just basically just be with them, working with them. And so for me, I'm figuring out ways that I can do that. Like, how can I be a light to people? And one of the best pieces of advices I've heard with this, and I do want you to hear this and possibly take this, is that, and I'm pretty sure I said this the other day, the best way to serve or to know who to serve is basically who you were before you figured things out. And so, in fact, literally just take one step back and serve the person you were before you had the last breakthrough you had. It's pretty much that simple. Um, and so for me, it's been a process of wanting to um, help people in that are put into leadership positions in IT specifically to know how to do that. Um, I had an experience like that where I was just basically thrust into a position of leading teams, and literally was like looking around, going, "Is anyone going to teach me how to do this?" I'm just expected to know this. All I know is the technology, and all of a sudden now I'm having to figure out how to lead these teams as well. And so it was a very hard, painful process that almost got me fired in the process, which is ridiculous when you think about it. You get kind of promoted or pushed into a role, and then you almost get fired because you can't do the role. It's ridiculous. But there's a culture of like, well, you just need to figure it out. You just need to figure it out. It's that toxicity that exists that I really want to be able to help people to be able to figure it out, like to provide the resources, the coaching, that sort of thing. And that's really what my focus and passion is right now is being able to do that. But I'll be completely blunt. The challenge is that most people that are in that situation, one, don't know about it, and two, wouldn't pay for it with their own funds if they knew. The reality, if I'm really being honest with myself, in that situation, if someone had come up to me and said, "Here's how I can teach you how to lead," just pay me, $15,000 and I'll teach you how to lead. I would have said, no, I'll figure it out, because that was the culture I was in, is figure it out. I'll go read a book or whatever. That I didn't, but that's what I would say. And so I have to realize that, and that there's an angle towards allowing companies to present people like me as a resource. But the challenge is they don't tend to do that for people that are in that kind of lower level of leadership where it's just kind of an emerging leader. It's like their first time to being a leader. For some reason, companies don't tend to invest at that level. They only invest in coaching and things like that at the higher levels, which I'm finding infuriating. But at the same time, from a financial standpoint, I have to be cognizant of that and say, "Oh, that's really going to be a thing, isn't it?" And so I'm having to potentially um, not delay and shift my focus right away to coach those that are in the higher positions and try to make ways where I can help them or myself just equip those that are just in those emerging leadership roles where they're very starting out in their leadership. It's easy to forget. Not everyone has like a decade plus of leadership trying to figure it out along the way and having you know I mean in one position, it wasn't for my leadership. It was for something else ridiculous. But I actually was fired at in one place because of just various things going on. So I was a leader. I was a director, and I was let go because of something else. But it was you know an oversight on my part. It wasn't anything hugely malicious or anything like that. It wasn't anything like that. But it was just more of just like a political kind of a thing, actually. But it was one of those where I now have to um, resolve that in myself of being able to say, you know, I recognize that that's a possibility for people, and helping them prevent that is huge, right? So anyway, that all that to say that um, it is very difficult for me to um, when I hear about things like that of saying that the very thing you're most passionate about is the very thing that's most difficult to sell. It's tough, but it's been a journey for me of that, and so just living and learning and adapting, but also just being willing to say, okay, if that's what I need to do to make this work, that's if I keep my why in there, that's good. Now, the thing I was talking about with Paul and kind of being the tent maker is me considering going back to that mode of being in that position. Now, the interesting thing about all this is that as you're seeing this in a public forum, that I have decided also not to shy away from my own uh, faith in this. And so making these things available, I'm not pushing it down people's throats. I'm letting other people talk about me, I guess you could say, which is from Proverbs, by the way. Very much I would much rather others share what I'm doing rather than me push it. Um, and honestly, that's something we see with the ministry of Paul and others, that it was the word spread. Now, what also spreads is the persecution, which is what we were reading about today. And people literally saying just because of what he believes and what he says that he's not fit to live. Take him from the earth. It's utterly ridiculous. But there are people that get that in their head. That all Paul is really trying to do is have them accept Jesus and recognize that he's the Messiah. That's really all he's trying to do. And they're wanting him to die because of it. When you really boil that down, it's really harsh. And that's my heart for people, is to help them see that, look, we can dissect everything that has been written, or sorry, everything that I've been able to figure out in life, and all the things that have made me what I am today. And even when I was, you know, I mean, I'm not saying this to brag or anything like that, but there was a time where I was pretty top of my game, and money was flowing in because of what I was doing. I was working way too many hours in the week, I'm sure, but at the same time, there was a time where there was serious amounts of cash coming in, and it was great from that perspective. Um, Empty from other perspectives, to be honest with you, um, but the thing is, this all came when I figured out these lessons. So why wouldn't I try and help others get to that point? That's great. But the honest truth is, key questions like my wife once asked me, like, "How in the world do you deal with all the stress? How do you deal with this?" And I couldn't answer. And it was later I realized it's like, well, it's because of your character. It's because of who you are, and who you are is because of Christ. And so for me to hide that from people and say, "Oh, just figure it out." Come on. Come on now. That's not who I am. That's not who Jesus wants me to be. That's not who God created me. I'm a person that loves to teach and inspire people. That's why I do this, right? I do this completely off the cuff, unprepared, knowing that very few people are actually watching it, except for my brother here. Hello. I say that. But in any case, it is one of those things where we have to recognize that the people are at various stages, um, and that the honest truth is nice because of Christ. Yeah, yeah, it is that transformation. We can't disconnect that. We can't disconnect that it is because of Christ that we are who we are. And so if I go out there and I just write books and give speeches and coach and train and do all these things and don't let people know that, oh, by the way, it's important for you to know that there's another missing component that I didn't teach you today, and if you'd like to learn that, here's a mechanism for that. you know it's not gonna be required, it's not part of the course, but it is something. Or if you want to know why my character is the way it is, if you want to know why I care about you and why I want to see you successful and why I want you to grow, that's that opportunity. And that's the spirit I think Paul had. And that's kind of what we see here ultimately is, in all the cunning and all the kind of brilliance of his delivery of the story here. Ultimately, that's what it is. He's like, for example, let me pull this back up. Where he's asking them, "Is it legal for you to whip a man?" What he's trying to do here is say, "Look, I don't want you to get in trouble. This is information you need to know." And he's doing it in such a way that it's just like, "Hey, you didn't check my ID, buddy." It's one of those key things that he's like making sure, but he's advocating for the person. He's not shoving it down his throat and say, "How dare you? I'm a Roman citizen. How dare you?" No, he's saying, "Look, are you sure you're in the right place? Are you sure you've got everything covered here?" Now it's weird for a person that's about to be whipped to ask somebody if he's, in the right legal place to be able to do that. That would be very unusual. It would be usual for them to start screaming that's, "No, you can't do this. I'm innocent," or whatever. That would be very normal. So it really is smart of Paul to approach this the way that he did, and it's we don't see this kind of behavior in Saul previously. We don't see him acting like this. So this is a when I talk about things like gifts of the Spirit that enhance our talents. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about, where it is not just simply that we are already this way and then Jesus comes and we're now enhanced in that. It's more than that. There is these gifts of the Spirit that are given where we now have this level we're already operating at, and we can get better. And let's make that a curve. Let's make that so it's on the way up. But when we reach that point of salvation, now all of a sudden we're given gifts that accelerate those even further. And so now we're on a much higher pace trajectory than we were on before. That's the way these gifts of the Spirit work. So all of a sudden, Paul is gifted with this ability to communicate and speak with people that he did not have before. He might have been schooled and all these kind of things, and that helped. And he might have been talented as a persuader. Obviously, he got people riled up to persecute the Christians, and so that was part of it. But that gifting was huge. So, what would it be like for me to simply stop anything I'm doing right now and just go back full time to being a consultant and just serving people like that, right? What would that look like? Well, here's the reality. Eventually, Paul went on from just serving alongside people and started talking to people. It was a pattern he had every single time. He would serve with them, and then he would, speak in larger audiences and serve at a wider level and focus beyond just the work. Sometimes we're actually told he would stop the work. And so it's really important for us to realize that we have these bits of talents that we have that are amplified by the gifts. And if we ignore either or both of those, then what are we doing? We're just flatlining. We're not, or actually, sometimes I think, and a lot of times we're not just flatlining. We're actually declining as we become discouraged, as we simply fall into patterns of behavior where it's just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. A lot of people that I know, a lot of people that I know, just go to work and they just do their thing, and there's no purpose for what they're doing. And so they're just declining and declining and declining. But what if it is your purpose to actually use those gifts? Now, does that mean go out and get a different job? Not always. Sometimes it really is just one of those things where, like John Maxwell says, you can lead from the side. You don't have to lead from the front. You can lead shoulder to shoulder. You can bring people along with you. You can be that source of encouragement. You can be that person who prays with them. You can be that person who literally just asks them probing questions to see where they're at and to help them see where they need to be. You can do that, you know, unless you are, well, I can't think of scenarios where you're not. Work is almost always interactive. It's very rare that people work in a situation where they don't interact with somebody at some point. Extremely rare. So go do it. Don't sit here and figure out what the very right thing to do is, or the right thing to say. Go, go. Even if go doesn't mean that you're actually going anywhere, even if it means that you're serving those that you're next to, go do that. I mean, it is something where we have to start somewhere. Not everyone is called to leadership. Not everyone is called to worldwide ministry or anything like that. I mean, and I think most of us would be honest and say, "Thank you, thank you, God, for not putting that burden on me." It's really hard life, but that doesn't mean we're free of that calling, that responsibility, if you will, to minister. Yeah, it's not hard. It really isn't. It is not hard to be Jesus with skin on, as was famously quoted by a child to his father. I need you to be. I can't just hear your voice. I need you to be here with skin on. So we need to be Jesus with skin on, or to put on Christ, as C.S. Lewis said. Absolutely. All right, everybody. I've preached for long enough. It's been great to be with you. I hope you are blessed by the best. Go be a blessing, all the rest. Uh, for those of you that are, oh well, yes, here we go. Those of you here that are here in the U.S., I do have a giveaway for you. Unfortunately, this is only for those of you that are actually in the U.S. Just I can't ship internationally with this, but we are doing this giveaway, and I do wish you luck. There's lots of ways to enter, and the more entries you have, the more chances you have to win the book I'm giving away. But there's also some great things to do there. There's some things you can do to actually earn those things, like go subscribe to the YouTube channel and various things like that. So I encourage you to do that. Uh, but in the meantime, I will encourage you to interact. Go ahead and, like I said, if there's something that impacted you today, feel free to put something in the comments about it, or a verse that stood out to you, or just share this with someone and say, hey, you know what? Here, in fact, if you go on our channel on YouTube, there's a playlist. I think I'm in the habit of putting that in the description. I hope so. If not, I'll make that a thing. But there's a playlist there, so you can go through this everything we're doing with this series and acts, and so that'll be there for you. So feel free to share that playlist with people and encourage them to take between 40 minutes and an hour out of their day and just dive into the Book of Acts like this. This perspective is I've been really enjoying this. And so it's, if nothing else, it's been great for me to be able to do that. Asking why I can't ship internationally. It's not in the budget right now, and figuring it out has been a challenge in the past. So right now and there's some also legal things with being able to do that. So with this particular giveaway, I have to legally limit it to the United States. So there's just some things with that, unfortunately. So it's unfortunate, but it's true. In any case, hope you all are blessed by the best, and you go, be a blessing to all the rest. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.